Blizzard Entertainment used to be one of the best gaming companies in the world. And by best, I mean the freaking best. Any game that Blizzard released was considered one of the best games of its genre. It set the bar for all future games to look at. But over time, this quality that we saw in Blizzard began to fade away. Small cracks began to show up in the foundation of Blizzard. And over time, the Blizzard that we knew slowly became a pool of Chinese lovers who only cared about mobile games. Well, at least that's where it's heading. So today, we're going to be looking at the past of Blizzard and see where things went wrong for our beloved gaming company. At what point did Blizzard, we know, disappear, and this J. Allen Brack pool of crap took its place? Well, let's explore the history of the fall of Blizzard. This is where things truly began to change for Blizzard Entertainment. When the soulless company of Activision bought our beloved gaming company Blizzard Entertainment. Although we wouldn't see the consequences until much later. This was where things changed for Blizzard. For now, the parent company Activision would begin to change how Blizzard did things, changing how they released their games and caused them to release their games that were unfinished to make the end of their quarter. This was the true beginning of the end. So probably the first thing that we saw with Activision Blizzard taking over was Diablo III. So Diablo III was nothing compared to its predecessor. It was not nearly as strong, and it also had several criticisms for it always on DRM. Although it was the best-selling PC game of 2012, the game had several bugs and errors that drove the game down. People complained that it was too cartoonish and not dark enough like its predecessor. The gothic vibe of death and all that had really been abandoned in Diablo 3. People were also annoyed that the druid class was skipped in Diablo 3 and Diablo Immortal, but don't worry about Diablo Immortal, we're gonna get to that. But Diablo 3 was a huge problem for Blizzard because it drove people away from the franchise and made several people angry. And this was just the start of it. Diablo's fans are probably the most loyal fans, so a lot of them did stay. But having their beloved game like Diablo 3 being treated like this was kinda not really going well, and it wasn't a good start. It really was the start of the end for Blizzard. Warlords of Draenor is arguably the worst expansion of World of Warcraft. It was an expansion that was hyped up, and it was going to be going back to Warcraft's darker roots. After Mists of Pandaria, which got a lot of backlash for being too kiddish and cartoony for its panda theme, even though the expansion wasn't that bad overall, Blizzard wanted to show audiences that they were going back to orcs, demons, and even all the way back to Draenor. We were going to see characters like Durotan and Grommash Hellscream, and the game gave us some very exciting looks at some dungeons, raids, and other interesting features. The problem is that it didn't deliver on this hype. WoD gave promises that it couldn't keep in order to get the game out on time, like one other game I know. And this was the start of a horrible expansion for Blizzard. WoD's features like daily quests, dungeons, and other core features of the game were some of the core reasons why the game failed. This is when we saw a hero, the one who came from the shadows, someone who casted himself into the fire for all of the Warcraft players in the world. He has no name, but he is known as the Chosen One.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
And thus, the idea for classic Warcraft was born. But even though this Chosen One started this amazing conversation, it was also revealed how out of touch Blizzard was with their community. And it revealed the parasite that was living inside of Blizzard. His name, J. Allen Brack. Or as most call him, J. Allen Brat. Yeah, I know, too much. Anyway, this is where he left himself unfold and show his true evilness.
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
You think you do, but you don't. The meme was born, showing the community how out of touch the developers were with the community. But don't worry, there's another meme waiting for us later in this video. The idea of classic WoW was born in the era of WoD because WoD was so bad that it caused people to flood to private servers that were like classic World of Warcraft. The biggest being Nestarius. Eventually Nestarius was shut down by Blizzard. This caused fans to become outraged, and when Blizzard sent people like Panzers to calm them down, people like Panzer were like Blizzard shills, well, it didn't work. In any case, WoD was the second big sign that something wasn't going right with Blizzard. Well, Activision Blizzard, that is. Now, we're going to jump a few years into the future. We had Blizzcon 2017, which excited people for Battle for Azeroth, the newest WoW expansion. Legion had been a pretty good expansion besides the legendary system, and people were ready for a good expansion. That went more about the division for their factions and other main characters like Sourfang, Anduin, and Sylvanas. But as time went on, people began to notice things with the beta. A lot of problems and issues began to spur, casting beta testers to go uneasy. When BFA released, it was a disaster. Some people argue that BFA is even worse than WoD, and it caused several issues for the player base. Bugs from the beta weren't fixed, LFR was still as stupid as ever, and the daily quests still annoyed people as well. But people still had a small amount of hope. Blizzard announced at BlizzCon 2017, along with BFA, that they were making a classic server option for World of Warcraft, which fans freaked out about. The Chosen One had done it, and we could see that we had had a great impact on Blizzard, and thus Blizzard a great impact on the community. But that was still a year away, and at the moment BFA was a disaster that was pissing a lot of people off. But this was nothing compared to what was about to come. Alright guys, we've come to it. Of all the things we've talked about so far, none of it compares to Diablo Immortal. Since Reaper of Souls, which was released in 2014, Diablo fans hadn't had a Diablo experience in a very long time. Blizzard had cut the Diablo 3 second expansion because of how bad Diablo 3 had been going. And they also had scrapped their first round of Diablo 4. So we weren't in a good spot with Diablo. So people had heard rumors of Diablo 4 and were ready to see them. Alright, this is what they were waiting for. And they were told at 2017 BlizzCon that nothing would be there for them. So when BlizzCon 2018 rolled around, people were freaking excited to see what was going on with Diablo. When fans walked in, they saw this dark display area where no one could see what was inside. They all speculated that it was new game test footage for Diablo 4. Fans sat down and waited for their announcement, not knowing what was to come. As each announcement rolled by, people became more and more excited about Diablo. And when the time came, the legendary man came out. This guy. Yes, he came out and got the crowd excited about Diablo, but then something strange began to happen. He began to talk about mobile devices and how they brought people together. He began to talk more about phones and tablets, and that's when he announced the tragedy of Diablo Immortal. This was Blizzard's mobile game for Diablo, and guys, if you haven't seen a live audience or if you've watched this reaction online, you have no idea what it was like. This was a slap in the face to Blizzard's fans, and it not only showed how out of touch Blizzard was with their community, but it also showed that they were aiming at the Western audience and were ignoring their PC gamers. People thought it was a joke, and this was more evident when the wretched Q&A happened. Guys, this Q&A was the most embarrassing Q&A we've ever seen at BlizzCon. And that's including the one with the Chosen One. The one with the meme that started the WoW Classic revolution. You think you do, but you don't. But no, this one is somehow worse. As each person asked the developers questions, they would either respond with, "It's too early to say," or "It's going to be a true Diablo experience." And as this was going on, a champion arose. He laid down his shield. He put down his sword. He walked straight into the lion's den. He walked up to the mic and asked the best question of all time.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No, it's a fully fledged Diablo experience on.
Not only did this question get asked, but it also got a full-on cheer from the audience. For people were furious with Blizzard. It felt like Blizzard had looked them in the eyes and said, "Fuck you. We want that Chinese money." This was such a legendary event. But it wasn't the only one. Another soldier walked up to the lion's den and asked the question,
Is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this just strictly mobile forever?
Are there any? The current plan is to be on mobile, both Android and iOS. We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC.
And then the greatest Blizzard meme was born.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have
Everyone's got a
phones,
phone.
right?
Do you guys not have phones? This meme grew to such an extent that people on the internet thought it was even better than "you think you do, but you don't" meme. This meme spiraled out of control. Things began to go crazy for Blizzard when they re-uploaded their Diablo Immortal trailer 3 times, for it was getting so many downlikes that they were deleting comments and other people were speaking out against the game. Diablo Immortal was probably the biggest public catastrophe that had happened to Blizzard at this point. And this is when things really began to become evident that Blizzard was out of touch with their community. We had seen problems go on before. We had BFA that wasn't going well. We had WoD, which was a disaster. But these were just expansions. We had good things that happened, like Overwatch being announced and released in 2016. Rumors of Diablo 4, alright? We had the Warcraft movie that came out, and that didn't do too well in the Eastern, but it had come out in pretty well in the Western audience, so people were still kind of getting into it. We had Legion, which had done a good job in kind of getting us back into the groove of things. And with, WoW Classic coming out, that was also a good reason to be hyped about Warcraft. So this was a good time to be a Blizzard fan. I mean, we had lots of stuff. Hearthstone was doing pretty good with new expansions, stuff like this. But guys, this really just showed how much Blizzard was falling apart. Because of all things announced at your convention, people flied across the world to see this. And you went and told them,
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah.
it's reasons like this that have Blizzard fallen apart. But this was just their biggest problem at the time. It's still debated as probably the worst, but there are some who say what we're about to see can get even worse somehow. This is one of the biggest news stories for Blizzard, when they fired 800 of their employees. This was a big sign that Blizzard wasn't doing good, if you hadn't told already, but a lot of their community had turned on Blizzard for this action. There's not a whole lot to actually say about this, besides the fact that it was mainly a business point on Activision Blizzard's part, but it was a huge loss for the company, and it showed the community that Blizzard genuinely didn't really care about their employees or their customers as much. It was one of those things where it really didn't help at all with the situation. Alright guys, now we're at the Blitzchung Hong Kong situation. Most of you probably know about this if you have kept up with any of the gaming news at all, because it was all over the place, and even people like Alexandria Cortez got involved, so it was a big deal. It got a lot of people into it, so This issue was very recent. The action of Blizzard really demonstrated that the company we loved was actually a company and it was bowing to its Chinese overlords. I'm going to quickly explain the Hong Kong protests in case you don't live in a democracy or China. You see, all the way in Hong Kong, there were lots of protests going on for democracy because Hong Kong is actually separate from China. But China was like, hey, we're going to put you under our laws. Hong Kong was like, fuck you. So then there became more and more protests until flat-out rights began to happen all over the city. And still to this day, the protests are still going on. Now, what happened with Blizzard was a Hearthstone tournament was happening when the winner of the tournament decided to stay on live streams, Liberate Hong Kong. The guys casting the tournament began to laugh and duck their heads under the camera so they couldn't see. China freaked out about this, causing Blizzard to freak out. They then banned Blitzchung for 2 years and didn't give him his prize money, and also banned the casters from ever working with Blizzard again. Now, the community was fierce about this, and it began to make, like, Mei from Overwatch a kind of poster boy saying, "Free Hong Kong." People then demanded Blizzard to undo their punishment, and Blizzard ended up giving Blitzchung the prize money and minimized his ban from 1 year of suspension to 6 months, which people still thought was outrageous. Blizzard's fans began to protest, saying Blizzard doesn't support free speech. Blizzard had said they supported people's free speech, but that Blitzchung violated the rules of the tournament, which meant he stated his own political beliefs instead of keeping the conversation on the tournament. People thought this was an excuse that was very hollow. Blizzard was so fearful about protests and all the things going on that they canceled a huge event in New York where they were going to debut the Overwatch to the Switch. This caused a huge outcry against Blizzard, and it made things only worse. For now, it was clear that they were obviously scared of bad press. And it wasn't until BlizzCon 2019 that Blizzard made an apology. This apology to people felt very shallow, for they didn't actually do anything from the speech except for just say that they were sorry. All it really was is just the, leech of president who has somehow crawled his way to the top, J. Allen Brack, had gotten up there and basically said, "I take responsibility, I'm sorry, please give us your money still." So it was a huge disaster. This just made people think that they didn't care about them, and it just became this whole disaster. Throughout the convention of BlizzCon 2019, there were people wearing free Hong Kong shirts, people dressed as Winnie the Pooh, making fun of China's leader, and people's protesting outside of the convention. And again, this was still holds over to Blizzard today, but it's not nearly as toxic as it used to be. But what does this whole event tell us about Blizzard? It showed us that Blizzard is a greedy company that only cared about money now. And by Blizzard, I mean Activision Blizzard, because Activision is owned 5% by a Chinese company. So this really shows that they really are influenced a lot by China. Not by just that, but the whole Diablo Immortal situation was also guided towards China because mobile games were very popular in the Western audience. So in doing so, they separated themselves from their customers. This was just another example of the mess that Blizzard has stumbled them into. Ever since the Diablo Immortal mess, they have been getting terrible press. And with 2020, they needed a good year. They had announced Diablo IV, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, and Overwatch 2. 3 huge announcements that were the company's way of turning things around, to show the fans that they were still loyal. And they also were just about to release Warcraft 3 Reforge, and, well, let's talk about that. Well guys, we made it to the last one, Warcraft 3 Reforge. Warcraft 3 Reforge is Blizzard's most recent failure, and since this video was created, Warcraft 3 Reforge was supposed to be the start of Blizzard's comeback in 2020. This game was announced at BlizzCon 2018, one of the few good things to come out of that BlizzCon, and it wasn't supposed to be a remastered like StarCraft. Warcraft 3 Reforge was supposed to be a completely redone version of the game. Better graphics, an updated BattleNet, new interesting cinematic cutscenes, and more character development for characters like Jaina and Sylvanas in the campaign, to explore how they really would act more and develop their characters more for future World of Warcraft. These promises were never delivered. Warcraft 3 Reforged was released way before it was ready, even though it had been delayed an extra 6 months. The game had bugs, the graphics weren't as good as even the original game, some say, and there were no fancy cutscenes as they were advertised in 2018. Here you can see what they advertised, and here's what we actually got. Big difference. Once again, the customers were outraged, again showing their true colors. Blizzard had stomped on the legendary product that was made before Activision bought Blizzard. Just saying. This product really showed people how greedy Blizzard had become and that they didn't care about the games that they were making. Throughout the years, people could see a pattern of mistakes. The Blizzard quality had turned from the great Blizzard quality that we know to Blizzard quality. Yeah. So people began to try to get refunds for Warcraft 3 Reforged, but Blizzard had made the process so complicated that it was infuriating. Plus, there was rumors that people had tried to help other customers get the refund, but then they were reportedly banned. Now, I haven't seen any proof of this or any evidence, so if you do have any, please let me know in the comments below. For me though, the worst part throughout all of this was probably the original game. A lot of people had thought that if they didn't like Warcraft 3 Reforged, then they would just go back to the original game, but Blizzard had removed the original servers for Warcraft 3, and only the Warcraft 3 Reforged servers were up, so now it's impossible to play Warcraft 3 online. You can still play the campaign, but nothing that requires the battle.net. This is what caused the big uproar in fans, causing them to hate Activision executives who forced the game out before it was ready so they can make their final quarter and get those numbers for that. And also, most people blame J. Allen Brack for this as well, who gave a very weak apology, if I might say so. He went on there and said that Blizzard was sorry about this, and that they were sad about this, and that they would try to do better, and to set higher expectations for themselves. And most people believe that this apology is worse than the Blizzcon apology. And, well, yeah, Blizzard showed their true colors for Warcraft 3 Reforged. And at the moment of this, they're still recovering from this mess. Warcraft Shadowlands has not been released. Diablo 4 is not even close to being released, and same with Overwatch 2. So yeah guys, it's been a rough 2 years for Blizzard, and if they really want to change things around, they're going to need Shadowlands to be really good. They're going to need Diablo 4 and Overwatch to be really good. If these things don't, but in the Blizzard we used to know, the one with Mike Morhaime and Chris Metzen, it may truly be gone guys. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video.